Welcome back to another episode of Rabbi in the Hot Seat, where we get real about life. Let's go.
Judaism has written a lot about slander and evil speech. How does this apply to social media?
We speak a lot about slander, really lashon hara, because it says a lot about who you are as a person. When you say bad things about other people, it's less about them and about you, because happy, nice, kind people with healthy self-worth don't say not nice things about other people. Now, social media has just made it much worse because it gets out there and it stays out there and can completely ruin people's life. So social media hasn't given us a license to say whatever we like. In fact, it's given us more of a responsibility to be careful with what we say and make sure we're not saying anything negative. Bearing in mind, if someone hurts you or does something, you can go up to them and speak to them personally and say, that hurt me. Very, very important to learn the laws of lashon hara, evil speech, because it completely changes the way you view life, you view yourself, and you view other people. Maybe we should do a whole series on lashon hara.
Miriam asks, are Jews allowed to read palms?
Well, very interesting question. Thank you, Miriam. It says in the Zohar there's something called Chochmas Yad, that there is actually something to the palm. You can tell a lot about someone's soul and tendencies based on their palm, and also in the forehead. And we know that the famous Kabbalist, the Arizal, could tell you about all your past lives and everything in your forehead. Palm reading itself, though, Judaism says you cannot do it because it's a form of divination or trying to look into the future. And we don't do that, firstly, because we're meant to be tam, which means simple and pure, and just focus on what we're meant to be doing now and trust Hashem that the future is going to be good as long as we do the right thing. And secondly, because Judaism believes that free will and prayer and tshuva, repentance, can completely change everything. So you can't make any statement about what's going on in your hand about the future, although we do say the Kabbalistic masters could actually tell you a lot about your spiritual makeup and your traits by reading your hands, but we tend not to do that because we don't need to.
It's hard for me to wake up in the morning. Do you have any advice?
Yes, absolutely. If I were to tell you that I'll give you $50,000 to meet me at 4 o'clock in the morning, would you be there? Absolutely you would be. What if I told you that you got to pick up the girl of your dreams from the airport at 5 o'clock in the morning? You'd be there, wouldn't you? So the truth is, it's not that you find it hard to get up in the morning, it's that you don't value what you're getting up for, because as soon as you value what you're getting up for, then you'll make the effort to get up. That doesn't mean that getting up won't be hard. It means that you'll do it even if it is hard, and you'll set 10 alarms, and you'll get your friend to pour water on you. So then people say to me, well, you're not offering me the girl of my dreams and $50,000, so what do I have to get up for? Well, how about getting up for yourself, for your personal growth, for your self-respect, for your self-worth, to live the best possible life you can possibly live? Second answer, by the way, is how do you go to sleep? If you go to sleep looking at your phone and falling asleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, of course it's going to be difficult getting up. If you fall asleep worrying about the alarm and not looking forward to the alarm and saying, oh, I don't want to get up, I don't like my day, I don't value my life, then you wake up with that consciousness. If you fall asleep in a healthy way, that means you don't need to eat any food for 2 or 3 hours before you go to sleep, otherwise you'll spend your whole night digesting. You don't need to be looking at a screen for a while before you go to sleep, and go to sleep with the consciousness, I'm actually looking forward to get up. If you've got to go on vacation, you're going on a holiday the next day and you've got to get up early for the aeroplane, you do get up early because you've gone to bed thinking, I want to get up. So go to bed with the right attitude. It makes it much easier to get up in the morning. In fact, the first thing it says in the book of Jewish law is Yitkaber ka'ari la'amad babakeh. You should strengthen yourself like a lion to wake up in the morning. And like a lion, actually, if you've seen lions, they don't get up very well and they sleep most of the day. But what that means is they're the king of the jungle. No one messes with them. So when your negative mind says to you, oh, you need more sleep, or it's too cold, or it makes you lazy, don't listen to it. Be a lion, be a master. The Kotzker Rebbe, a famous Hasidic master, actually said, if you want to get up like a lion, you can't go to bed like a donkey. So go to bed like a lion, which means I'm excited to get up, and then you can get up like a lion.
If someone makes a positive contribution to the world, even if they have sinned in other areas of their life, do their good works still count in God's eyes? Simply put, do good deeds outweigh bad ones? Do they cancel each other out?
Let's say there's a guy and he's a very evil person and he's beating up his family and he's greedy and he steals a lot, but then he does lots of good work for charity. Does he get credit for that? The truth is, if you do good things, you get rewarded for doing good things. But if you're an evil person, you get punished for being an evil person. Now you can also start questioning, if he is an evil person, maybe even the good things he's just doing for his honor and his ego and to look good. And so can we really trust his good things? So thank God we don't have to work this one out. This is for God to decide. But in general, you get credited for the good you do, and you get discredited for the bad you do. So they don't cancel each other out. You get judged in a fair, honest way, and your merits are rewarded, and your demerits are there are consequences to those things. Although Judaism teaches a very beautiful thing, that a mitzvah, a positive thing, is worth a lot more than an aveira, a negative thing. So let's say you die and you have 10 mitzvahs, 10 good things, and 1 bad thing. Would you swap it out? Would you say, okay, I want to get rid of my bad thing, so I have no bad things and 9 good things? Would you do that? I have 9 mitzvahs and no aveiras, or 10 mitzvahs and 1 aveira? The answer is mitzvahs are each worth $1 billion. Aveiras, you lose $10,000. So it's not worth it. Keep the aveiras, but don't do them. It's not worth doing them, because you want to refine yourself to be the best person you can, and make sure you go with a clean slate.
Why is alcohol allowed but weed not, according to Judaism?
If we talk about wine, it's a different thing. But in terms of some people, since the weed one, they were to say, well, people drink lots of alcohol. You go to these places and the rabbis are downing alcohol all the time. So what makes alcohol better than weed? And the answer is nothing, actually. You're not allowed to get drunk. Judaism teaches it's forbidden to get drunk, apart from 1 day a year on Purim, and that has to be done in a very, very conscious, slow way with the right intention and the right method of drinking, and it's only wine. So no, we don't think alcohol is okay either. In fact, we believe the first sin in the Garden of Eden was done with wine. And we believe that Noach, after the flood, he made a mistake with wine. And Mishlei, Proverbs, says there's a big problem with wine. So you've got to be very, very careful how you use these things. The truth is that alcohol is actually much worse physically for you than weed. So no, we don't approve of overly drinking alcohol or smoking weed at all. The one slight difference one would say is that if you have a glass of wine or a beer, it doesn't completely shift your consciousness, whereas a small amount of weed actually does shift your consciousness to a much larger degree. So in general, we spoke about this before, we want to maintain our high levels of presence and consciousness without needing something to help us do that. And weed is a major shift, whereas a little bit of wine on a Friday night, just to loosen the shackles of our ego and relax us a little bit in order for us to be able to access our heart and our love and our joy, that's the right way to use alcohol, but definitely also in moderation.
Miriam asks, what is the secret to happiness? I feel like I am doing everything right, but just do not feel happy. There
are a few secrets to happiness, Miriam. One of the secrets is actually you don't need to do anything, because your natural state of being is happy. Like a baby is always happy. They're always smiling, everything's great. So we think that we need a reason to be happy, but the truth is you actually need a reason to not be happy. Babies are always happy until they feel hungry. When they feel hungry, they're feeling an external pain. So then they cry, and then you give them a bottle, and then they're happy again. And they're not sitting there saying, well, why did it take them so long to bring me my bottle, and I'm not worthy, and I bet other people have better bottles than me. They're not doing the mental mess that we're doing. So the truth is the only thing that's getting in the way of your intrinsic state of happiness is your own mental commentary, which is negative, and I'm not good enough, and why me, and this shouldn't happen, and you're over-analyzing, and your doubt, and your criticism, and your judgmental stuff, and your guilt, and your fear, and your worry. Babies don't have a mind because they don't have words, therefore they don't suffer from all of that stuff, so they get to just experience their natural state of being. So rather than chasing happy in some external thing, if I get a better body and a better job and a better relationship, then I'll be a happier person. Not true. Tap into your intrinsic happiness. That said, there is a key to happiness, and that's called a positive attitude. The better your attitude to life is, the better your experience of life is. And positive attitude means focusing on the good. Focus on the good in my life. I focus on the good in myself. I focus on the good in other people, and grow from the pain, grow from the challenges. Positive attitude doesn't mean, everything's great, toxic positivity, but it means that I am focusing on the good and gratitude and self-worth. But when there is painful stuff in life, and when there are challenges in life, I'm going to feel my pain and I'm going to cry. but then I'm not going to be a victim to the pain. I'm actually going to use the pain to grow and become a stronger, more resilient and kinder person. So the real key to consistent happiness is a positive attitude to life. Because if you look at the world through pink glasses, everything looks pink. And if you look at the world through green glasses, everything looks green. If you look at the world through low self-esteem glasses, you're going to get bad relationships. If you look at the world through gratitude glasses, life is going to be a lot better. So the ultimate high positive attitude in Judaism is called emunah. And emunah means that I know that everything's actually for the best, that even all pain is meaningful in some way. If you had real emunah, then you wouldn't have fear and doubt and worry and hatred and guilt and anger and all of those things. So your attitude to life creates your experience of life. One final thing that I think is important is living with purpose. Having purpose and meaning. What am I actually living for? And that always comes from what am I giving to other people? How am I going beyond myself? So if I feel like I'm living a life of purpose and have a healthy, strong sense of self, then I'll be consistently happy. So this is why people aren't happy. Because they believe happiness is the feeling I get when things go my way. So when my team wins, then I'm happy. When my team loses, I'm sad. When it's nice weather, happy. Bad weather, sad. Catch the bus, happy. Miss the bus, sad. Someone says something nice to me, happy. Someone says something not nice to me, sad. So basically, most people are complete victim to the external world, and they think that as long as I can get the whole external world to live up to my expectations, then I'll be a happy person. You'll never be a happy person, because the world will never live up to all of your expectations. And even if you got that new house and the new car and all those things, you still want more, and you still won't be happy. So forget about the external world for happiness, and work on your internal world. Two ways. Number one, your attitude to life, that's your mind. And number two, going beyond your mind into your soul, your neshama, which is actually in a pure state of happiness all the time. The truth is, your physiology helps a lot. Benny, the producer of the show, just said that sometimes his daughter comes home and she's not feeling very happy, so he says, lift up your eyebrows, and she lifts them up, and that actually does make her feel happier. So physiology is how you're standing, how you're breathing. So if you're feeling a little sad, sit up a bit straighter, breathe a little bit deeper, do things you enjoy doing. Although those pleasurable things might be able to bring out the mood, but still they're not called real happiness, but they might be little factors that you need in order to give yourself the mental space to then be able to tap into true happiness.
What is the evidence that the Torah is divine?
There are many pieces of evidence that the Torah is divine, but listen to this one very quickly. Human beings don't make extraordinary predictions. Why not? Because they're not going to come true, and then you're going to prove your book to be false. That's why there are no extraordinary predictions in the Dhammapada, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, and the Christian Bible, because they don't do that. Human beings don't put it in. But we see in the Torah there are 7 extraordinary predictions. Not only the extraordinary predictions, they're contradictory, and some of them are negative or supernatural. Let's go through them very quickly. Number 1, we're going to be an eternal nation. That's very unlikely to happen, seeing as there are no other nations around today that were in those times. For example, you've never seen a Canaanite or a Moabite or a Jebusite, Hittite, Parasite, Gigabite, all those. They didn't survive. But we do see that other nations like China and India, they survived for thousands and thousands of years. But why did they survive? Because they had their own land, they had billions of people, and they weren't at war and persecution the whole time. The Jewish people actually had the opposite. We didn't have our own land. We were very few in number, constantly persecuted. Whoever wrote the Torah made those predictions. They said, we're going to be exiled from a land. That's a crazy thing to say. Why would you put that in your book? It's very unlikely to happen, because exile is not very common. People get conquered, but not exiled. Number 2, few in number, but you're an ancient nation with a very high birth rate. The average family, Orthodox family, has 6.7 children. Don't know what that looks like, but whatever. The average secular family, 1.2 children. Ancient nation, high birth rate. You'd expect a high population. The Torah says, no, we're always going to be few in number. 3rd, persecution. The Torah predicts the worst persecution for any nation ever. Now, let's say you're a human being 2,500, 3,000 years ago, making up a religion. Why are you putting in your book that you're going to be exiled, few in number, and persecuted? A, if they actually happen, then you're not going to survive. There's no natural chance of survival. B, if they don't happen, then your book is false. You've set yourself up with a lose-lose situation. Then it gets even crazier. The Torah says that we're going to be the greatest nation ever to walk the face of the planet. The truth is, we're probably not going to survive if we're exiled, few in number, and persecuted. We're going to be maybe some kind of gypsy nation hanging around. But we've seen that 2% of the 0.2% of the world population, 22% of Nobel Prizes. Morality comes from the Torah. There was no such thing as tzedakah, charity, before the Torah, and education for all echelons of society. Spirituality comes from the Torah. there's only one God, not all the pagan gods. Morality comes from the Torah. Spirituality comes from the Torah. Science, technology, agriculture. You got to remember 1948 when Israel regained our indigenous land. It was just a desert surrounded by enemies, no natural resources. What have we achieved since then? The highest ranking on NASDAQ, agriculture, space travel, medical patents, everything. We're clearly the light unto the nations that whoever wrote the Torah said we're going to be. Then this is a crazy one. It says that the fertile land, which was part of the Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia, is going to become infertile when the Jews are exiled. That's a supernatural prediction. That's saying that the land is conscious and it knows when the Jews are there and it doesn't. So it only becomes fertile for the Jews. And we saw that as soon as the Jews were kicked out in 70 CE by the Romans, the land, which was fertile and lush and amazing and agricultural greatness, it became a desert for 2,000 years. That's a supernatural prediction that came true. And then the final one is you're going to return. You're going to come back to your land. And we see that. We came back to our indigenous land. We're the only people who were ever exiled and persecuted all the time and actually came back to our land. In fact, how many people spoke Hebrew 100 years ago? None. Everyone spoke Yiddish, Aramaic. We're the only revived language. So we have a book written. Even the biblical critics say it was written at least 2,500 years ago, that says 7 extraordinary predictions that we're going to be around forever, but then takes away all the factors we need for survival. We're going to be exiled, few in number, and persecuted. Very, very unlikely to be around forever. Why are you saying negative things? Actually, the Torah says crazy things. If I was writing a book and making up a religion, I wouldn't say anything bad about my founding fathers or the nation, but the whole Torah says it was a terrible nation, and God wanted to kill the nation, and they worshipped the golden calf, and they sent the spies. So who's going to be making up a book? Whoever wrote this book is either God or the biggest anti-Semite who ever walked the face of the planet. And then it's all contradictory, because if I survive these, then I'm not going to be a light unto the nations, but I was a light unto the nations. But let's say I get exiled and I say to the leader, hold on, if we get exiled, then other nations are going to come and take our land. The Romans and the Byzantines and the Ottomans. And I say, don't worry, they won't be able to make any civilization in our land. Well, how do you not make civilization in our land? It's so lush and fertile. No, don't worry about that. It's going to turn into a desert when we leave. That's a supernatural prediction. And by the way, don't worry, guys, you're going to come back. We did come back. Every one of those extraordinary, some negative, contradictory, one supernatural predictions, every single one of them came true. And we're sitting here, right here, opposite the Kotel in Jerusalem. We are proof that the Torah is divine.
Have you studied Baruch Spinoza, and can you comment on his ideas? Many of which rabbis I have spoken to have not been able to contradict.
Yes, I know Baruch Spinoza. I did philosophy at university, a Jew who came up with very un-Jewish ideas. For example, pantheism. Pantheism says that the universe is God. Basically, nature is God. But we believe in panentheism, which means Hashem is in the universe, but also stretches infinitely beyond time and space, beyond the universe, and was a creator of the universe. Spinoza also didn't feel like God was a personal deity. He couldn't speak to God. He took away that. He didn't speak about the soul very much, took away free will. So his ideas were very, very antithetical to our Jewish ideas and beliefs. But I'm sure he was a lovely Jewish boy, and he'd come to me for Shabbos. Thank you so much for watching another episode of Rabbi in the Hot Seat. I hope you're spreading this stuff because people need to hear it. Like, subscribe, notification, share, comments, send in your questions, do everything. Today we spoke about a bit of Spinoza, a bit of proving God wrote the Torah, a bit of how to get up in the morning. You know what? I forgot what else we spoke about, but you can just watch the episode again. Watch it double speed. Why not?